myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Thursday night, which means I'm joined by Gibbo and Supermac. Good evening, lads.
How are you doing, boys?
Hi, great to see you. And wow, lads, we are in the heady heights of fourth place, Gibbo.
I know.
Keep your feet on the ground. Keep a hold of your hat, John. What does this all mean?
Well, it means I'm enjoying life for the first time in about a decade and a half, for starters, I think. I'm also getting a bit of a nosebleed because I haven't got a head for heights. So, I'm used with operating below ground, fighting off relegation. And now, all of a sudden, we're fourth. I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? We're above Chelsea, we're above Liverpool, and we're above Manchester United. So the original Super Six, as they like to call themselves, their worst nightmares coming true, which is that Newcastle would scatter them. I don't think they expected it perhaps to be this early after the takeover, but that's what they were afraid of.
Sure,
and I'm delighted to say that then their nightmare is absolutely becoming true.
Yeah, if I can just say, John, on that it's not the money that's doing it. They because they've hardly spent very much at all in footballing terms.
Well, I mean, it's an insult. You're right, Malcolm. It's an insult. There's people that are saying, outsiders and pundits outside the area, saying it's money. Well, it's not money. It's made Joe Linton a star. It's not money that's made Almiron what he is. It's not money that's got Willock and Longstaff playing the way they're playing in midfield. It's not money that's got Shaw looking terrific. All these players were already there when the takeover happened.
Absolutely.
And Howe has transformed them from being below average players to well above average players.
Yes. And aren't they acclimatizing well to it all?
And that's nothing to do with money, Malcolm.
No, it isn't.
Nothing to do with money. I mean, and by the way, out of that list who are all here, I've left one of the best ones out by mistake, and that's Callum Wilson, who was here. These players, people like Wilson and Almiron and Shaw, who were here originally, have transformed into superstars. Wilson was always a good player, but he's blossomed even more by having better players around him. Almiron is unrecognisable. Joe Linton's unrecognisable from the centre forward that he was.
Yeah, but for me, the sudden incredible improvement in Almiron and the finishing, his goals that he's getting, I think a lot of it has got to do with Wilson, because Almiron, if you remember, he kept running out to the corner flag. Now, with Wilson, there's a presence in the penalty area, and Almiron, he keeps aiming for that. And therefore, he's finding his way. Instead of being out by the corner flag, he's finding his way into the box. And some of his finishing, you think, well, is that genius or is it just luck? But he can't be that lucky over and over and over again.
I mean, the staggering thing, when we look back, I mean, the transformation of the team, guys, when we look back before, we said the defence that let in 4 and 5 goals regularly is now the best defence in the Premier League. We have now got 2 strikers who score a goal every 2 games. That's some average. If you look currently, and I know it's early in the season, but Miggy has 6 goals in 12 games. That's a goal every 2 games. And Wilson's got 4 and 8.
Yeah.
Or 1 goal every 2 games. And by the way, they both scored at Spurs, and they were both superb goals in a different way. Wilson's swiveling finish was brilliant, and the goalkeeper, Lewis, ran into him. It wasn't a foul. Where was Wilson supposed to go when the bloke come out? And of course, Miggy's finish, the way he opens up his body and sticks it inside the far post. Two terrific finishes.
Sure, and it's that left foot coming in from the right.
Yes.
Because the left foot coming from the right, it opens that. But although he seems to be in a very tight position, very narrow position, because of that left foot, he's just got those extra few inches to play with.
You know, the wonderful thing is, when I used to see him when he first come, and he set something of a record, guys, didn't he? He went about 26 games or whatever it was before his first goal for us when he first joined it. And I used to wonder in the old days, why he smiled so much, because I thought he had nothing to smile about. Now he's got plenty to smile about because he's scoring 5-5 or whatever it is.
And doesn't he smile?
It lights up.
Oh, it really does. It lights a city up, for heaven's sake.
Well, I'm trying to negotiate to get him to sit on the top of my Christmas tree this Christmas. Not only is he the star, but he'll light up the whole of the living room.
He will do as well.
Great stuff. I mean, it was a wonderful performance, and against a team that's been, up there for the last few seasons as well. They had a dodgy result in the Champions League last night. VAR intervening, sadly, for Tottenham. Hasn't been a great week for Conte, but been an interesting week on NUFC Matters. Some great questions being asked by the people in the chat. One of them was, John, what would you rather take? Newcastle finishing fourth, winning a place in the Champions League and not winning a trophy, or finishing eighth, let's say, out of the European slots and winning the Carabao Cup?
Oh, now you're being very naughty. If you'd said the FA Cup, I think I would take the FA Cup finishing just outside, but because I think for the young guys of today, a lot of people would take the Champions League and say, just let's get in the Champions League. Let's draw Bayern Munich or Real Madrid or Barcelona or whatever. For older guys who have gone through purgatory for donkey's years, I want us to win something. And we're getting the Champions League. And with the utmost respect, if we're getting the Champions League this year, we're not going to win the Champions League. It will be sensational. It'll be wonderful. It'll be mind-blowing. And we'll do well. But I just want to win something, And the FA Cup is bigger than the League Cup, so I would prefer it to be that. I'll have to take the League Cup, though. But I would love Newcastle to win something. I think the young supporters would take the Champions League because they haven't gone through the dross since 1955 or 1969, if we take the European. So they would probably take the Champions League. I just want to win a trophy, I want to come here with a bit of silverware and say that's ours. So I think I will take our first trophy first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what about you, Mal?
Yeah, I think so. I came back to Newcastle in 1974, and despite the fact that we had lost the game, the reception that we got on that it stays with everybody who was a part of it for the rest of their lives. It was a very special moment, and I think that all supporters of today, they need that very, very special moment. And if Newcastle could actually win a cup, my word, the celebrations would go on for months. So I'm with John. I think, finish eighth and win a trophy. Or if you lads get knocked out of the cups, then you've got to get in the Champions League. Yeah. So no tall order there.
No, definitely not. And it's amazing. 12 months on from a season
Isn't
where
it
we.
great? Steve, we're talking about this. We're talking about
That's
this. Where
amazing,
this
isn't it?
time last year, you were looking at us two and said, "Will you take fourth bottom?" And we were saying, "Yes, we'll take fourth bottom because it means we're going to still be in league, but it's going to be a tall order to finish fourth bottom." This, just prior to the takeover, I'm talking about. By now, the takeover had happened, but we were still in the clouds. But yeah. We were talking just over a year ago about whether we were going to survive, and now we're talking about whether we want the Champions League or the FA Cup. I mean, it is an unbelievable turnaround in terms of the time factor. Absolutely unbelievable. And now we've got people sort of trying to say, oh, Liverpool and Chelsea and Real Madrid want Bruno, and quite frankly, if I was Bruno, I want a Newcastle United player. When did we last have that? But Bruno'll stay here because we are going in one direction, and that's to the moon. And he sees that. And he got on, by the way, at the first stop on the journey. And good for him for doing that. He got on at the first stop.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Barry was. I think it was 10th actually, Barry. I can't remember who asked the question. It might have been you. Might have been 14th. You might be right. But either way, mate, it's just great to be talking like that. It was a great question. At the start of the week, and it's been good to get the lads' opinions. Peter says Cup win, beat Palace next week, then 4 more wins, and we win a trophy. And lots of questions coming in, so let's get into them. Tom Dixon talked about a player who has found himself out on the sidelines in recent weeks. What does Matt Targett need to do to get back into the team, John?
I mean, it's an incredible question, and I would like to turn it on his head and say, what did Matt Targett do to get out of the team in the first place? I mean, I've got to pay tribute to Dan Burn because he looks like Jack Jordan playing at left back, and I mean before it's not a natural fit, but he's done terrific. He started with a tough time, but he's dug in, and he's got a heart, a huge heart, and he's done terrific. But you wonder. And by the way, what Eddie Howe does at the moment, Eddie, you can do what you like. If you want to play Dan Burn in goal against Aston Villa, I'm certain we'll still win because we're fourth top. So I don't mind if you play him there because obviously Dan Burn can play anywhere. You can play left back, you can play centre half, he play goal. He's big enough, so let's play him in goal. But no, I'm intrigued as to what Targett is done. When you take a guy on loan and then you're impressed with him enough to sign him full time, then he can't get in at all, and you don't put a left back in his position. You put a centre half in his position. The question for me is not so much what's Targett to do to get back in, but what on earth did he do to get out in the first place? Having said that, I'm not complaining about anything because we're fourth top. But it is a Targett fascinates me. I don't know what's happened Monday to Friday, but if I'm suspicious, something's happened Monday to Friday. Because he hasn't had his backside taken out by a top winger to get him dropped.
He took ill, and he's just for me. He took ill, and unfortunately, for him, there's just been a rich vein of form.
And he's been fit since, and come on, hasn't he? As a sub,
he came on as a sub. But I guess what Howe has proven to us is that he rewards a team for their performances, and you cannot deny that the team that he's picked has been the right team more or less each week. I'm
just saying, if Dan Burn appears in goal on Saturday, I'll be more than happy because I still think we'll win.
Yeah, go on, Mal. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yes, it is. If there were one thing to say on why Targett isn't in the side, I think it's his lack of pace. And
But Burn hasn't got pace, Malcolm. Burn hasn't got pace.
No, but but he hasn't got caught in those in the situation. I have seen Targett get caught 2 or 3 times. One last season really badly. He really did get badly caught and look silly. So I think that would just stick in Howe's head. It would just stick there, and it's a question mark over the fella in terms of, well, who's he facing this weekend? And we haven't seen Burn get seriously done. He had a bad game, but even then, having a bad game at St James Park, it was 2 or 3 games back.
Brentford, I think, Malcolm.
Brentford it was, yeah. He still didn't get caught in a way that I've seen Targett get caught. So I might be wrong, and that Howe's looking at different things to that. But I would feel that thing from last season, it's just sticking in his head, and that he can't afford in the way that we're playing, because we're pushing up, we're taking a high line, and I think that I noticed one of the tags going by, and there is one that that made a very good point, and that is that Trippier gets forward hugely, and so it's a back three that's playing there, awaiting Targett's return. Trippier's return, and so Burn, he can play that sort of. I can be there for the centre half position on one side, but I can also do the left back job over there, and so it's interesting that that you can have such an argument over this, and I do feel a bit for Targett, I have to say, but I just think that the way that Newcastle are playing, the formation that they're taking, Burn is better suited in the 3 shirt than Targett.
Okay, interesting question, and good answers from both the lads. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the course of the next couple of games. Just before the break for the World Cup, Barry Hogan says the problem is Tom. He has to play at Burn, and he wants Shaw and Botman as well. No room for Targett, and we haven't missed him. That's interesting. Barry asks you a question, Mal. He says, "Can I ask Malcolm, who's one of the best strikers we've ever had, where would you go for our next signing? Is Brazil the answer? Or do you have anyone in mind that you'd like to see at Newcastle?"
Yeah, I would be suspicious of going directly to Brazil. There's plenty of Brazilians over in Europe, and they've tasted Europe, so they come with European experience, and I think that's important. That's how it was with Bruno. And Joe Linton, of course.
Joe Linton, yeah.
Yes. They've experienced the pace of the European game, the European conditions, which are quite different to what they have over in Brazil. But Brazil isn't the only country that offers great players. There's countries all around the world that offers great players, but I do think though that it's best in the situation that we're in, that we get players that have got the European experience of both football and of weather conditions and what have you, temperatures, etc.
I certainly think, Malcolm, that if I look at January, and what I like about Newcastle is that they improved the team. Nothing is out of bounds. You've got Burn, but you still sign Botman. You've got Dubravka, but you still sign Pope. No no position is totally secure, and that's the end of it. We might well go out and get an improvement in any position, but I do feel a tad vulnerable at centre forward, the out and out centre forward, and I think I want to see that addressed in January, because Wilson is doing fabulous, but he'll get injured, and Wood is not the answer. Isaac as a centre forward is not the answer. He's not a
centre forward. No,
as a forward, he'll do terrific. As a forward, he'll do terrific. I think he'll prove to be an outstanding signing, but he's not an orthodox through the middle, between the sticks centre forward that can play with his back to goal. So I'm looking
absolutely right,
and I'm looking desperately for us to sign a centre forward in January if possible, but we've certainly got to address it by the summer. We can't continue without a top weight centre forward to push Wilson, cover with Wilson, and on occasions,
John, you can see it, I can see it, and I'm sure that Wood can see it. Why doesn't he go all out to fill that hole that you're talking of?
Why didn't Chris Wood go all out to fill it?
Yeah. Why doesn't he? Because he just hasn't got the ability to do it. He hasn't got the pace. He hasn't got the knowledge in his head. He doesn't see.
The thing with Chris, Malcolm, for me, not to make this show, our show, because Steve's on every night, our show look like we're so anti-Wood, it's untrue. Wood can do a job in a side like Newcastle were last season, when the height of our achievement's going to be to stay up. If you've got to stay up, that's the job he did at Burnley, that's the job he did at Newcastle last season. He's okay for that. But we've progressed. We've gone from being the side last season that only wanted to stay up to currently being the side fourth top. Well, he's not a fourth top side centre forward, and that's the difference. Everybody's got the limits, and Chris Wood's limit is way beneath where Newcastle are now.
Sure.
It's stepping stones. It's stepping stones. I mean, Killer Kill Klein, if we go back to the entertainers, Killer Kill Klein was absolutely essential to Newcastle United. But he wasn't Steve Howe or Philip Albert.
Yeah.
And we got to the Steve Howe and Philip Albert situation.
Sure.
Killer couldn't have been part of that, bless him, and I love Killer to death. And we wouldn't have got where we are without Killer. But eventually, we left Killer behind. And I think that's the situation today as well.
And it's just waiting for Steve to defend Chris Wood.
Well, because I don't want it to appear like this program is about decimating Chris Wood. He would do a job last season. He won't do a job now. Bless him. I cringe when he comes on and there's only 7 minutes left. But I think, can we lose the game in the 7 minutes? Can we lose the impetus that we had? And I'm certain the boy knows. He is ready-made for the championship or for a bottom four side, hoping you're going to finish fourth bottom.
What price a return to Burnley?
So, yeah.
I don't think Burnley wouldn't touch him.
He's a legend down there, Mal. They like him. You never know. I think he could go. I think he could go in the January transfer window.
I think Sean Dyche would probably have bought him, but whether company will is interesting. But
it'll be interesting.
Again down there, I know.
He is. They do like him, and look, as I say, I will stick up for him. Just not to disappoint Andrew in the sense that he played his part when we stayed up last season. Steve, I'm sick of hearing Liverpool, Spurs, and Real Madrid are going to turn Bruno's head. I'm praying there is no chance. What do you think? Well, there's talk of an extended contract, which somebody else has mentioned in the chat tonight, and not just for him, Malcolm, but for Miguel Almiron and Jonjo Shelvey as well.
Yeah. Don't know.
Now you changed when I said that.
Yes.
And Chris Wood. No, not Chris Wood. But you know, ultimately, for
Yeah,
me,
but just on the Bruno issue, he's come to Newcastle last January when Newcastle were really struggling, but then all of a sudden it all took off, and he's just gone up, and he's so enjoying it, and he knows with all the wealth that is behind Newcastle now, he knows that it can keep getting better and better and better. That's what the people want who are in the boardroom. And why would he want to go to Real Madrid, who are pretty much a struggling side, because all the time they're struggling to try to keep up with their own history? Barcelona the same. But Newcastle, they're making new history, for heaven's sake.
He said that he wanted to become a legend. Well, Bruno, well, you don't become a legend in just 1 year at Newcastle, which is what has happened so far. It takes longer. And if he goes to Real Madrid or anybody like that, will the fans be chanting Bruno, Bruno, like they do here, where they've got 100 El Clasico type players, etc., etc.? He'll be another good player. Here, he's an absolute superstar. You know what it's like to become a legend at Newcastle United. You've got Malcolm, and he's got that. And I think he's a very clever boy, and he's got his family over here, and he's got everything over here, and he's got everything going for him. I tell you, when he leaves Newcastle United, if Newcastle United don't tail off and show no, and by the way, there's not a cat and chance of it happening, but show no ambition, plateau out into being a top 6 side, but never going further than 6. And if that happened to Newcastle United, Bruno would take to his toes. And you know what? I wouldn't blame him. But that ain't going to happen. And why should he leave now? He adores, and wouldn't we all? He adores what happens on match days. The Bruno chants, home and away. The fans being obsessed. Newcastle have got a great side. They've got other good players. They've got Trippier. They've got Botman. They've got Bruno. They've got Wilson. But Bruno is the one the fans chant for. Bruno is the exception, the number one. Not Sir Maximum either. It's Bruno. And he's not going to give that up quickly. That is a good status. And that normally takes quite a while to get. He's got it very quickly. And he likes it. And I think he's a clever boy. I don't think he's going to go anywhere at this stage.
What do you think about Shelvey, John? Malcolm wasn't too keen about that.
You're trying to get me to have a go at my mate, aren't you? No.
Well, not really. Shelvey for me wouldn't have been anywhere near the club, mate. But you know, under Rafa, he got pushed to the reserves more or less, and was out of the door.
I'll tell you something about Shelvey. Steve. It is a brave man now that turns around and says about certain players at Newcastle United, well, he's hopeless, get him outside of Wood, your mate. Otherwise, because I can't see a thing going from pace control, bless him, I can't see it. But we could all ridicule Almiron, we could all ridicule Shaw, we could all ridicule Joe Linton as centre forward, and suddenly the ugly ducklings have all become swans. So what if the magic magician that is Eddie Howe suddenly turns Shelvey, gets him a new pair of legs that gets him around the pitch quicker, or puts him on casters or whatever to roll him around the pitch that much quicker, with his passing range? You never know what will happen. I have my reservations like Malcolm does, because I think he's yesterday's type of player, as well. You know, the one-paced midfielder, which you could get in the old days, was Jean Molby and various different people who were still quality, and Tommy Cass at Newcastle, who were quality but didn't have pace, but could ping a ball about. And I look at Shelvey, and he's never going to be given the pace. He's never as fit as he gets, and he's worked hard, and I'll give him that, to get into supreme fitness. Like he had a personal trainer during the summer to get him into the best shape he could possibly be. But will that get him quick around the pitch? Will it get him?
No.
You know, it doesn't happen. It's not as easy as that. And I always feel when he goes into the side, he dictates the way Newcastle will play. To get the best out of Shelvey, he's got to play the one.
And it will be totally different to the way they're playing now, John.
Yes, because we're playing now quick, boom, 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 pass, run, pressure, high pressing up the park, all of which isn't Shelvey.
What happens when Shelvey sits between the two centre halves who are playing so brilliantly and suddenly smacks a 60-yard ball down to the far corner flag? You know, and it's chase that. That's not Wilson's game. It's not really Almiron's game, with the way that we're seeing him look so successful at the moment.
I'm not surprised at the contract offer, because Eddie sees something in him and is determined. And when Eddie's determined and loyal to people, that's exactly what he is. If it happens, I'll just pray for the miracle that we've seen before our eyes with Joe Linton and Shaw and Miggy Almiron. But this will be the harder one. This will be the harder one to do. Yes, you can see a football brain. Yes, you can tell. He knows at this stage of his career, this is his big hurrah. This is Jonjo's big hurrah. If he can stick in and stay with this team, this will be his final hurrah. If he leaves Newcastle, it'll be to go that way. At this stage of his career, it'll be to drop down to a club that's near the bottom half of the Premier League or in the Championship. So if he leaves Newcastle, it's a backward step. Sure. This is his biggest time, so he'll be desperate to stay and make a go of it.
Right, but when he is on the pitch, for him, it's all got to be about Jonjo Shelvey. And I have watched him over and over and over again completely ignore the midfield player that's playing in the centre with him. What I've seen him do to one or two of the younger midfield players, it's absolutely shocking. You can't just constantly turn away from them and ignore them as if they weren't on the pitch. And that's what he has done. It so annoys me when I see it. It makes my blood boil. But at the moment, we've got young midfield players doing ever so well, and they're improving all of the while. And I don't think that he would help that in any way. In fact, I think he'd work against it.
The interesting thing, Malcolm, and we know that it's a squad game now, it's a 20-man game. 11 to play and 9 on the bench. It's a 20-man game on a Saturday. And we know that you've got to look beyond 3. But if you look at the Newcastle United situation, you would say, by and large, Joe Linton and Bruno are going to be there. So there's one more to start, and then there's the cover midfield players. Well, Willock is looking that much better than he did. There's a lot of unforeseen work done by Sean Longstaff, which goes under the radar and is not going to be eye-catching when you've got an 8'6" guy like Joe Linton and Bruno who can do everything. It's not going to be eye-catching. But you've got Joe Willock, you've got Sean Longstaff, you've got Shelvey, and you also, somewhere along the line, want to keep encouraging Elliot Anderson, because he is one of the futures of the club. So do you block off? And then do we go for Madison guys in January or in the summer? Don't rule that out. Don't rule that out. So we're going to be stockpiled with midfielders, but there's a lot of loyalty in Eddie.
Leicester would do a swap.
Do
you think Leicester would do a swap?
What?
Madison for Shelvey?
Well, this might surprise you, Malcolm, but I would take that.
I don't think they would. And Jody.
No, neither do I, by the way.
Geordie Tune for Life says it's a bit unfair, Malcolm, on Shelvey. He's a Marmite player though for me. He really is. And you watch old issues, old shows that we've done, and you'll hear us all going in on the likes of Shelvey, Joe Linton when things were bad. But things are going well now. And after when Shelvey came on again, he played his part.
I'm sure, Steve, that he'd love to get in there, but he will play to hide his lack of pace, and I cannot see him joining in on an equal basis as everybody in that current side does. They're all in there. They're all equal. They're all doing their job to the very best of their abilities. Great. And I think Shelvey would come in and ruin the lot. I really think that he would be a spoiler.
Well, there's something to look forward to then.
Malcolm used to be Joe Linton's biggest critic. Paul Williams says Malcolm used to be Joe Linton's biggest critic. That seems a bit harsh about Jonjo, he says. But John Justice Allen says Shelvey's a risk for me. No dodgy tackles or hothead red cards under house stewardship. So this is what I mean. He's a Marmite player. That's the best way to that's the best way to describe the guy. Thoughts on fan zones? Let's go to that. Sean says, lads, what's your thoughts on fan zones being introduced outside the stadium and organised pub crawls? The perks of a city centre stadium. I've often said, Gibbo, I mean, you and John Anderson, myself and Malcolm, we do pre-match entertainment at bars around Newcastle. The club do have a degree of ex-players. Malcolm does a bit up there, and we have John Beresford and the likes of Steve Howie, Lee Clark, etc. When they're in and around the region, pop up to do stuff. Bob Moncur, of course, he's always been an ever-present up there, and rightly so. So just expanding it away from the corporates, and just maybe pushing it out to, I hate to say it, but just like the fans who aren't in the corporate, they're no lesser fan. They're just fans who don't have the money. They don't have the money to be able to spend and go into a box or go into the barracks or whatever. So should we be looking after them a bit more, John?
Yeah, it's a very, very good thought, and we know, all of us sitting here tonight know, because we do these pub things prior to home games, how the fans are enthralled and want to discuss Newcastle United and have every right to over the pre-match pint. And I'm all for that. I'm all for anything, because the lifeblood of a club, quite obviously, are the fans. Why? Because it's cradle to grave. You can get bad owners like Mike Ashley, and you can get good owners like, say, now, and you can get rich owners with ambition like, say, John Hall, and you can get the old regime that we used to have in the old days with the Mackenzies and the McKeegs and the Lord Westwoods, who just ran closed shops. But none of those are consistent. They're in passing. The people that are consistent are the fans. From the day you're born till you snuff it, you support Newcastle United. You don't go and become part of the prawns sandwich brigade at Manchester United. Or if you do, we certainly don't want you back. You can get yourself over there. We don't want to know. Proper fans support the club where they were born. And I'm just grateful I was born in Newcastle and I wasn't born in Walsall. But you support where you come from. That is what you do if you're an ordinary fan, a guy that's not playing a game. And yes, let's do as much as we can. This current regime have embraced all aspects of Newcastle United so far, and all things take time. But I'm all for getting the fans as involved as it's possible to be. Realistically, you're not going to be able to form a boardroom of fans. They'd at every club, because it takes financial clout to run a club like Newcastle United. Apart from a business brain, you've also got to have financial clout these days. You know, if you go back to the 50s when Newcastle would win the cup, you didn't have to have a financial clout. You look at the board then of Newcastle United, and they didn't have two pennies to rub together. It was just passed down from family to family to family. Football's not like that anymore.
No.
So yeah, I'm quite keen on doing as much as possible with fans, and that's why I've enjoyed Steve introducing me to do these things, which him and Malcolm have been doing for years, of going out and seeing punters before a game.
Yeah, it's great crack. Sean, Steve, from your knowledge, where would you put a big public fan screen for those that can't get tickets? Probably the Town Moor. You know,
No. It wouldn't be allowed by Sky.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but I think
Sky will put a block on it. Because if you have a big screen, then you're actually taking you've got to take it off of Sky.
For 3 o'clock kickoffs on a Saturday, which of course are not allowed to be broadcast, but that may well change. However, I think I think if it was a licensed premises, say somewhere like the Centre for Life, which is opposite the Dog and Parrot, they have an alcohol license. They have a license with the council. They obviously pay a fee to Sky, but if they broadcast something, so maybe there's a way around it. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not sure whether they would ever do that. They used to do beanbacks, of course.
What's actually on the television at the time.
Yeah, they used to do beanbacks, didn't they? At the cinema as well, back in the 90s under the Entertainers.
Yes, but it's all changed now. That these television contracts, the money is so huge, they clamp down on it. Anybody showing the game when it's not a regular broadcast, massive no. And they've got lawyers who chuck the whole of the law at you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a yes. It's a resounding yes. Would love to have a little bit more entertainment for the supporters.
Yeah, sure.
The supporters want to see things, Malcolm, don't they?
Yeah, sure, but it's been sold by the football.
No, I'm talking about entertainment, Malcolm, which is the original question.
Sure.
Like, would you have a fan zone where, I mean...
have a fan zone, yes.
When you walk a certain grounds, it's like it's a family kind of environment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like merchandise stalls and stuff like that, burger stalls, and you name it. You know, they've got all of this, and it's well set up. You know, really well set up. Okay.
Actually, the Centre of Life would do that brilliantly.
Do they? Yeah, but they would do.
No, they would do it. Because we've experienced it at the World Cup and what have you. Yeah. And there's that vast area in the complex there. Yeah.
Blue Rhythm Boy asking a question here. I'll ask it to you first, John. How bad is it for the team if a key man gets injured? He says, I keep worrying when Trippier goes down. I mean, it's going to get better, John, isn't it, as each transfer window?
Without a shadow of doubt.
As we add to the squad.
And I keep thinking, this was going back to the point about Wilson, I keep thinking what almost covered, I was going to say adequately, what's adequate? If there's a drop in standard at all, it's not adequate. But we've almost got cover in all sorts of positions. If Bachmann's out, Byrne can play there. If Shaw's out, you might put Lascelles in there. At left back, you've got Byrne, you've got Target, you've got Lewis and Dummett, if you're talking about numbers. You've got Trippier, we've mentioned 6 midfielders. You've got on the wings, you've got Murphy and Fraser covering Almiron and Maxey. And the one position where we haven't got a great cover for Trippier, especially with Clough injured. So you do worry about him and you worry about Wilson. But I mean, I worry about Bruno as well, because we've got midfielders. We've got 6 midfielders or 5 midfielders. but we ain't got 3 Brunos. There ain't 3 Brunos. So we certainly haven't. We don't want Frank Bruno coming here. We need Bruno to play. We need Wilson to play. And I'm going to say it. Darn it, we need a Miggy Almiron to play. Now, I'm certain that I haven't said that too much in the past. But at the moment, the way he's playing, we do. Because he's a goal threat. And we've had 1 goal threat before that, which was Wilson. So we do. But yes, if Bruno got injured, if Wilson got injured, and right now, if Miggy got injured or Trippier, we would struggle. But so would any side. So would any side. When you look at I'm certain that Manchester United worry about Haaland getting injured. I'm certain the Liverpool of old were with Van Dijk, centre half, and when they had the 3 amigos firing up front, you worried about that, didn't you? Any side is going to worry. I'm certain that Spurs worry about Song and Kane, because take them out the side, and they're a very average team. Take them out the side. Sometimes it can be an average team with them in because they get nullified, but they are still absolute class. But you can't afford to be without your best players, no question.
No, definitely not, Malcolm. It's a worry when Wilson gets injured, I think.
Yes, it is, because he's the only one who enjoys playing with his back to goal and knows how to do it, and then get turned and. So he's always facing in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think the turn in form has been so evident since he came back up front, Mal, as well. He does something just so different, as you say. He's been, we've been playing well, but he just adds a different dimension, doesn't he? And that goal against Spurs, Mal, where it would have been so easy for him to go down like a sack of potatoes, but he used his natural goal scoring instinct to stay up on his feet and take the chance. Yeah,
Steve, I couldn't agree with you more. And he did exactly the right thing, and it was the goalkeeper who actually went down on his back. I have to say though, well done to the referee, because by heavens, he got it right. And that was in a full stadium of Spurs supporters. And he had all the Spurs players around him, but he stuck to his guns, and I thought it was a great reaction from Wilson, though, having where the clash was made. The keeper went into Wilson; he didn't go into the keeper.
He ran into him, Malcolm, didn't he? The goalkeeper ran into him and then went down like a sack of tape. He's saying, playing the old goalkeeping law.
Just expected.
He's going to get the foul.
The rite of passage with a
Wilson
free kick.
Did what every great centre forward does, which is put the ball in the back of the net and then let the argument start.
The case
First
afterwards.
of all, you put it in the back of the net. And it wasn't an easy finish. Look, turned, clipped it. Oh, thank you very much. Very nice. Now you can all have your arguments. I'm back on the halfway line, ready for the play to start again. And absolutely correct. Chop play. And the goalkeeper, did you notice at the end, Lloris went off the pitch quicker than Usain Bolt at the final whistle? He was down the tunnel and away. He's wanting to burn his gloves, isn't he? Because, on both, there were superb Newcastle goals, but he was a disaster on both of them. He made the mistake for Wilson and then ran into him trying to rectify it. And it was his ball out the box that was cut out by Sean Longstaff in the air to get the ball to Miggy, who then took 2 of them out like they were standing there, lampposts, 2 of the defenders. And by the way, that Royal had come back in the side. Am I grateful he'd come back in the side? Can he not play or not play? And does he just spend all the time moaning? What a moaning mini he is like. What a disaster he was like. Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
We've come across a few moaning minis this season. It's because Newcastle's getting the results.
Aye, but when you're playing up against Miggy, it must infuriate you if you're moaning mini, because he's just smiling at you all the time. I mean, you must want to punch his lights out, mustn't you?
John, there was the most fabulous photo of Almiron having scored his goal, and I have never seen such a huge grin on a player's face on a football pitch ever. It was an incredible.
He should get sponsored by some, the people that make false teeth or something. With that big, they should sponsor him for this wonderful smile that he produces. And I don't know how much wider it could get, because he smiled when the goals weren't going. I mean, the goals were rarity. If Miggy scored, last season Miggy scored 1 goal.
Yes,
1 goal last season. And he's got 6 and 12 this season.
Yeah, amazing.
Doesn't that tell you everything?
It's the fact that Wilson he's in the side, and Miggy recognises him in the box and wants to go and play with him.
Well, I don't know if it's down to Wilson or not, but I tell you what, Miggy will do for whatever it is. If it's down to Wilson, then Wood will have to put on a Wilson mask when he stands in front, so that Miggy keeps doing what he's doing. Because who would have thought, guys, if we rewind the clock backwards, say, I don't know, 12 weeks or whatever, who would have thought that if I'd said to you, Newcastle are going to really have a top scorer that's not Wilson, it's going to be a winger? Everybody would have said, well, it'll be San Maximum, because he was the winger that was loved by fans, etc. And Miggy was fighting to get in the side against Fraser on the other side of the pitch. But it's not San Maximum, it's Miggy. And the transformation has been quite amazing, because the number 1 fan favourite who played on the wing was San Maximum. Now the number 1 fan favourite's Miggy Almiron.
Yeah, unbelievable turnaround. It really has been. Okay, Newcastle United have a home fixture this coming Saturday. It's a 3:00 start, and the game, it's a sellout. And since Newcastle lost 3-0 in 2005, which is that infamous game where we had 8 men left on the field after a fight between our players, Newcastle have done so well in this fixture. Villa have failed to win any of their last 14 visits to St James's Park. Eddie Howe's side go into the game unbeaten in the last 7 Premier League home fixtures. And since he took over at the club, he's lost just twice in 20 Premier League games at St James's Park. I think there's a big reminder on NUFC.com, and I'm going to give a big reminder to you guys here as well. The clocks go back 1 hour at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning as British summertime gives way to Greenwich Mean Time. So I think we're all making sure that everybody knows that. Of course, it doesn't affect the game. The sick list currently extends to Alexander Isak, Carl Darlow, ASM, although there are rumours abound that he may be ready to get back on the bench. Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett are also still out. Well, as for Aston Villa, Boubacar Kamara and Diego Silva are out. Ludwig Augustinstein and Lucas Digna are doubtful for the game. On Monday, of course, Aston Villa, who got rid of the previous manager, Steven Gerrard, have now appointed Unai Emery, but because of his work permit, he won't be able to take his place at the helm until the 1st of November. So caretaker manager will be in place for this game at the weekend. Their away record this season after 6 games reads as follows. They've lost 4, they've drawn 2, and they've won none, and they've only scored 3 goals, and they've shipped 11 on their travels. The referee this coming weekend is Paul Tierney, which is his first appointment of a Newcastle game this season. We had him 4 times last season. The game against Chelsea, which we lost, draws with Southampton and Watford, and then the win against Burnley. He was also on VAR for the recent 5-1 home win over Brentford, where he helped us out by correctly intervening to deny the opening goal scored by the visitors. Tony Harrington is on VAR this coming weekend, and this is another game which we're looking at, John, and thinking we could do this. The only thing that people are asking in the chat is, are we going to have the curse of the Manager of the Month award for Eddie Howe? Because he could end up getting it, and we know what happens when you get that award.
Yeah, well, he's defied everything else, so he can defy that as well, can't he? I mean, the amazing thing is that Stephen Gerrard was sort of got the Aston Villa job with an awful lot of trumpeting that this was a high-profile footballer who was destined for the stars as a manager, having gone to Glasgow Rangers and won the title for them, which stopped the Celtics 9 in a row or whatever it was, etc., etc. Come down here, and before the games happened up here, he's got the sack. Now, no doubt Villa fans who love to have a go at us, remember the Sob and the Tyne banner and all that sort of thing, may desperately clutching at straws want to point out that although he's not available for this match, that Aston Villa have managed to recruit the manager that turned down Newcastle United. Dick Henry. Oh, no, he was a comedian, wasn't he? No, the other fella. The other one. That got him. Now, all I can say about that is that I would like to say a very, very sincere thank you to Mr. Emery for turning down Newcastle. Because if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have got Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe has done pretty well good for us. So we're more than happy. We could have had Emery if he'd said yes. He said no. We were snubbed. I've never been so thrilled at being snubbed in my life because the guy we got instead is a different class. So I'm more than happy with what we've got. Let Mr. Emery go off and do a job for Villa smashing after the game on Saturday. But I've always said, and the Stephen Gerrard thing surprised me because they're in desperate trouble, or they were before the caretaker got them a big, big win. But mind you, Brentford, they beat Brentford big, wasn't it 3-0? Brentford on their travels are always resistant as a chocolate teapot, aren't they? I mean, we saw them get done 5 at Newcastle. So they went and got done. They just leaked goals away from home, no problem. But I always felt that Villa had a lot of better players in the league position, which inevitably points the finger at the manager. You know, you look at Watkins and Ings and Ming and McGinn and Coutinho and they had too many good players to be down the bottom. They may only be mid-table, but too many good players to be where they are. Now that points the finger at the manager. Now the minute the manager went, they won 3-0, which indicates that they weren't playing for the manager. So they will provide perhaps a sterner challenge to us than they would have done with Gerrard here. But I still fully expect Newcastle to win.
Prediction, John?
Yeah, Newcastle win.
You're going to go with the scoreline. There's lots of 3s and 4s in this chat.
Well, I was going to say I'm going to go for 3-0.
3-0. Okay, Malcolm, give us your assessment of this game. How important is it that Eddie Howe keeps the run going?
Oh, absolutely. It's vital. And I think that Newcastle, after having won at Tottenham Hotspur, who started the game in 3rd place, for heaven's sake, now they've got Newcastle right on their tail. And Newcastle are up for it, for heaven's sake. And if you're worrying about opposition, Aston Villa will be worrying more about Newcastle than Newcastle will be worrying about Aston Villa. That's for sure. But that's not to say that Newcastle would take them lightly, not in any way. Eddie Howe doesn't allow that. I enjoy watching a thorough professional at work with him, and for me, I think Newcastle will look to go out with the same attitude that they showed at Spurs, and they are brilliantly organised at the moment, and I can't see them conceding. And in all honesty, I thought that the referee got it totally wrong with the Harry Kane goal. I think it should have been disallowed. And one, he had hold of Trippier, and two, I felt that he actually started the run that led to the goal. I personally think when the touch was made to him that he was offside. Anyway, that's by the by. With regards to Saturday, I think that Newcastle United, as I say, won't concede, and I think that I'm going to stick with you, John, because that's the scoreline that's been in my head. That Newcastle will win 3-0.
Fantastic. It's a positive. I'm going to go 3-1, lads. Slight change. I do think Aston Villa will breach our defence. I think they've certainly got players that can do it.
Nick Pope will come and throttle you.
Sorry. Listen, great stuff as always, lads. That hour always flies over. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Some great questions, as always. Mr. Anderson asking the question, press conference show tomorrow. Yes, I'll be watching the press conference bright and early, and I'll stick something out for you guys to watch. And I'll be back 5 o'clock tomorrow night with the Amigos until 7. And a big happy birthday to Lee Clark today. Finally joined.
Yes, happy birthday, Lee.
Finally joined the Hawaii 5-0 club. I'm looking forward to going and having a little bevy with him tomorrow night to celebrate. So looking forward to that. But for me, it's goodbye to John, goodbye to Malcolm. Look forward to speaking to you again next week, lads. Take care.
Yes, and enjoy the game on the weekend.
Enjoy.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road on Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273 or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. Their website is thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property Investments, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk should you be interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them by going to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to the guys at Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Got a vast range of beers. They're a new brewery company, and their cans are suitably addressed, like the Geordie Juice here, in the strips of Newcastle United from the 90s. Big thank you to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things, and to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website. If you want to subscribe, then hit the subscription button. If you want to hit the likes, then hit the thumb up, and please share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and the rest goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. If you want to join, well, you can click join underneath the video and become a member for a small fee. If you want to pay the £25 fee and get a cup, a pen, a scarf, a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or use your smartphone on the QR code, which will take you straight there. We also give you a free car sticker. If you're a subscriber, simply email John at nufcmatters.com to claim your free car window sticker today. We also support the food bank on here. NUFC fans foodbank.co.uk is where you can find the matchday bucket and make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. We still do a lot of events in and around the region. If you want to see Supermac pre-match and after-match, you can go to the Dog and Parrot in Newcastle and hear Malcolm give his views on the game and listen to what he has to say about his career as well. Always a great afternoon. Kids are welcome. Good food, good beer. And get yourself into Pumphrey's. You can always see John Anderson and John Gibson in there pre-match on the Cloth Market in Newcastle. A couple of events coming up in 2023, an evening with Peter Beardsley, Friday the 10th of February at St. Dom's Catholic Club. You can get the tickets direct from the venue. And Peter Beardsley is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre on Friday, February the 17th. Tickets available from Woucher for that one. Get yourself on the Woucher. Make a cracking Christmas present for any Newcastle fan. Also, an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June, 2023 at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. Tickets for that are available from www.heelandtour.org.uk/events. And if you fancy a Christmas jumper, get the Bruno Christmas jumper from NUFC matters.com.